A very good evening to everyone. We welcome you all for the match 4 of 10 from the CYBER T20 Series V3 as a part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month October 2022. So today we have an interesting topic on dark web investigations, understanding the dark web upon an investigator's point of view. So we have our special guest, B. Vinod Babu sir, who's a well-known person in the dark web field. So I personally know him. We've just worked together in quite a good number of dark web related investigations and R&Ds. So we'll start with a short intro about sir. So Vinod Babu sir is a research scholar on dark web crimes. He's a certified trainer for Easy Counsel and CompTIA, a reviewer and author for research article and ebooks. Have delivered around 100 plus of trainings in India and abroad. He's a practitioner in design and development of software design radios. He's a security consultant for law enforcement agencies in India and abroad related to cyber and crypto crimes. He's instrumental in building security capabilities for various renowned organizations. He have developed cloud lab platforms to deliver the self-designed custom curriculums. He specialized in security audits and vulnerability assessment in government and corporate organizations. He is also a specialist in automotive and avionics related IoT and embedded technologies security testing. Out of all this, his prime area of interest is dark web investigation, in which he is doing quite a good number of researches for a number of years. We welcome you, sir. Now the stage is yours for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ashok, for that introduction. So, good evening, all, and it was a great pleasure and honor to take part as a part of this CYBER T20 series, and a great initiative by Kriyavan Cyber Forensic Services Private Limited. So yeah, cybersecurity being a buzzword all across, and dark web has turned out to be one of the most important area where the cybersecurity has taken a long stand on it. In fact, dark web has become a top priority for the organizations across the world, whether it is in corporate or law enforcement agencies. So all of them, the dark web is the most important thing that they are looking at. So from an investigator's perspective, when you look at the dark web, so typically when you take an leave view on the dark web, we see multiple layers on the internet. So broadly the internet, before we get on to the dark web, basically understanding the layers of internet, it starts with the surface web and the deep web and the dark web.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Is there any screen share, sir?
Yeah, screen has been shared.
I hope it's not visible. Can you just check it again?
Sure. How about now?
Just yes, sir. Now it's visible, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me know, Mr. Ashok.
Yes.
So yeah, broadly we talk about a dark web in today's session. The primary agenda of this particular session is to give you an insights about what's a dark web and how this dark web has evolved and what has made a dark web to evolve. Learning about a dark web as an overview point of view is one part of it. And most importantly, as I said as an opening note, like in cybersecurity, dark web is one of the most concern areas these days, whether it is for the government bodies or to the law enforcement agencies, this is a part of the government bodies, or to the corporate networks. Today, if we look at it, majority of the DDoS attacks are evolving from the dark webs. So irrespective, let me to say what kind of a crimes that take place in civilian society. Other than that, in the corporate organizations, so most of the crimes are data breaches, data exfiltrated data that has been posted on the dark web. So understanding the dark web from an investigative perspective, it's not always required to know this from the point of just law enforcement agencies investigation perspective, but also in terms of what are all the possibilities. We say that it is anonymous, we say that it is complex, we say that it is complicated, we say that cryptographically strong network dark web is. So what are all the possibilities now that we can actually monitor the dark web is what we're going to talk today. And we start with an understanding and outline about the dark web, and from there we'll be talking about the various formations of the dark web. So broadly, the internet has been layered and has taken a layered approach, which has been broadly divided into three layers, which is surface web, deep web, and dark web. Surface web is something which now accessible to any of the search engines, as because Google inventorizes the database, uh, which we call it as an indexing, right? Through using the cache methodology by using the crawlers, which are being pointed towards a specific file which has been hosted on each one of the website, called as an robots.txt, which in turn creates a blueprint of a website file called as an sitemap.xml. So sitemap.xml is pointed to robots.txt, and from robots.txt it connects back to the Google for the indexing purpose. So having said that, the overall data, out of the overall data that is available online, it is just the 4% of the data which is available on the open source or on a surface web. So whatever you ask, Google is replying you back. That turned out to be adequate information, but we think that at times Google has too much of information for us. But in fact, the overall data that is available online, let's say it is 100%, out of which it is just the 4% of the data that is there on the surface web. So where is this rest of 96% of the data is residing? So if you see broadly the societies that evolved, it started with a real world where we know each other and we understand each other, and we personally identify each other, which is what we call it as in real world. Then the netizen society has evolved, where we see that using the various social media, netizen society has connected back all of us using this something called as an internet. And the layered approach of internet, where a surface web, deep web, and dark web segregates this into 96% and 90%. So out of this, the 90% of the rest of the data is located on the deep web, and 6% to 6 to now, as per the recent research report of the Ponemon Institute, 6 to 8% invariably, 86%, and this is 4 to 6%. So, and this 86 to 90% of the data. So, which varies between this particular bandwidth. That's what exactly the data that is available on the internet, over the internet. So what is that which is actually bothering? The kind of activities that take place on the dark web is something which actually bothers us, and which made us to learn about this more in detail approach of investigating the dark web, because the kind of notorious activities that the kind of it has turned out to be a hub for the notorious activities. Because the deep web is like something which is which can be accessed with the special privileges. For example, your Aadhaar card data, which is there available online. For example, your PAN card data, which is there available online, but it can be accessed only by you. It has not been shown on the Google, right? So it is not indexed by the Google because it needs a specific access or an OTP number with which you can access your own personal information, which is tagged to your mobile number. Your bank statements, your medical records, all of this is online. So all of this put together, whatever has been locked with the special credentials, and the privileged people can only access this, or the people to whom the data is concerned with, or to whom this kind of an accessibility has been provided, they are the only people who can actually access the deep web. And then the surface web, as I said, it's a combination. So it's a freely and openly available data which has been voluntarily been put across, which has been crawled and pointed by using Google framework approach. That's why this data is available for you on the surface web. So it's just the tip of the iceberg, what we see today. As is a 4% of the data what we get on access of by accessing the Google, accessing any of the search engine. It's just tip of the iceberg. Most of it is located in the deep web, so 90% of it, and the partial 6 to 8% is what it is located in the dark net or a dark web. The data which is there on the deep web basically could be identified or could be located, searched, usually could be identified based on the strings on the or based on the TCP wrappers, so that are being used for the particular connection, based on which basically, even though it is a privileged access information, it is still available on the online on the search engines like Shogun. Dark networks are broadly classified onto the 3 different types of networks as the world has seen, just been popularly being used. So it starts with the freenet and the I2P protocol and the Tor protocol. So these are the popular protocols that are being used on the dark web. Freenet is like a peer-to-peer kind of protocol. So where it's primarily being designed for the file sharing. So this is one approach. So the classified information file sharing could be get it from the freenet. And the kind of pirated software distribution or could be criminal activities like child pornography or pornographic content, kind of logistical information related to the drug transitions. All of this information are being circulated and distributed across a freenet. Why the freenet is also so complex as a part of the dark web. So before we actually talk about the dark network, the first and foremost thing that we need to understand is when we look at the evolution of this data communication or the networks that we see, we started our journey with a standalone computing. So initially when it started, it's just a standalone computing. Subsequently, this standalone computing has moved on to a server and a client model. So with the server and a client model is what a standalone computing has been moved on. And from the standalone model, we moved on to the next level called as a distributed model. So in this distributed model, majorly we see that our data has been now a couple of servers put together, create a cluster. And this cluster would actually host our data. So this is a distributed model. The cloud is one of the examples for this. As we see that the mankind needs or always looks forward for something more. Now we see that at every point we find some kind of a single point of failure, right? So some kind of a new methodology has to be for which a decentralized process has evolved. So where there is no one single point of failure that could be identified. So where they can take a multiple models to connect with it. A decentralized model has evolved all put together. So this one of this decentralized model has actually given a scope for the growth of the dark web. One of such protocols is a freenet network, where peer-to-peer network, like one step ahead of the BitTorrent or any of the torrents that you use, or any kind of an peer-to-peer sharing, pirated softwares or movies, whatever kind of content that is being shared. So this the torrent activity is one of the example of a P2P, peer-to-peer network in terms of file sharing. The only change that we see from a peer-to-peer to the freenet is peer-to-peer. It's possible by anybody to access this particular data, whereas in the freenet, they have implemented a cryptographic approach. Cryptographic approach was implemented on this. This cryptographic approach, where they have a public and private keys, a pair of public-private based asymmetric cryptographic method has been implemented, so that when A needs to communicate with the B. So they need to have a private key to request for a specific file. So this is how they started actually binding or using this cryptography for this particular purpose. Then we talk about an I2P, which is an invisible internet project. Invisible internet project is an open source technology which is used for to publicize the data, right? To run the data as a service, dark web related data, or any kind of an market services, or any kind of an criminal activities that could be hosted by using the I2P. I2P and Tor is almost similar, except the kind of nodes and the pattern that they use in terms of connecting to the nodes. Dynamic patterns that are being used by the Tor is more efficient than the I2P. I2P is designed to create a hidden network under the internet itself. I2P architecture, if you look at it, so each message, a plain text message, would be applied with a cipher. Then they create an outbound tunnel to communicate this particular data between multiple endpoints. So every time it takes an iteration, a key would change and the pair would be updated back to the originator. And same would be updated back to the destination. So how exactly does this work in terms of understanding what kind of an algorithms are being used, or kind of methodology that is being used? So they identify, so each at each and every hop they identify and they update this information to a centralized repository. So let's say somebody has decrypted us, and then again when they send the same data over here, so they encrypt it again. So the key what they have used PK1 would change to PK2. Right. So this information will be updated to a centralized table, which is again advertised across multiple nodes which are connected within that network. This is called as a DHT table, distributed hash table. Distributed hash table is something now which maintains the keys as well as the source with the complete meta table information in a hash format, which should be updated back to each one of these nodes. The same thing we can now correlate this with the blockchain miners, like how the miners will have the ledger related information of each one of the transactions that takes place on the cryptocurrency. In a similar way, in I2P also, the DHT, the file movement will be tracked through a centralized hash table. Then comes the onion router, which is quite popular on the dark web. So at the moment you say dark web, most of the people they talk about Tor. Tor is a project basically designed by US Navy SEALs way back, almost 2 decades back. It was incepted by the NSA, and subsequently it has been now rolled out as a project to be assigned to the US Navy SEALs. And they have with the thought process of now maintaining an encrypted communication between their for their own purpose. They have designed this Tor, and subsequently they rolled out this Tor across the world. Tor project is based on values and principles of net neutrality. So today, the moment we access any of the websites, they ask to allow their cookies to be installed. They ask like kind of information, like they can take your user agent, that is a browser information, could be your IP address, could be the PII, personally identifiable informations, could be identified by most of the websites, which is what we call it as a PII, personally identifiable information. So your anonymity has been broken. So it de-anonymizes you, and your freedom of speech, the moment it de-anonymizes, you'd be a step back in terms of what to speak, what to present, because everybody was watching and the facts might not be presented in the right appropriate way. So keeping that in thought, So they have the open source community has rolled out this Tor network, so which has been subsequently transferred from the US Navy SEALs on the GPL license, General Public License. They have released the first Tor version, and then the Tor community has evolved. So this community consists of like cryptographic experts and network security experts and application security experts together. This community would constantly changing the networks from time to time. One of the best well-known backbones for this Tor network to connect the various nodes put together. So they create an hash table based nodes, distribution nodes. It is called as an DHT Kadimalian. So this is the distributed hash table network, one of the largest peer-to-peer networks across the world today. This is now runs from one of the CIS countries. Basically, this evolved from this one of the CIS countries. So a Tor network, whenever you talk about a Tor network, as I said, a distributed nodes. So a distributed nodes where you have a hidden service hosted at some point, and the advertising server would be hosted at some point, which is what we call it as a directory server. This is called as an HS, hidden services, onion hidden services server, right? It's a director services server, and this has been hosted. This is related to, let's say, a drug sales related hidden services website, right? So it will be hosted on node 1, and node 2 will act as a director services server. Node 3 would copy the DHT information, whatever the DHT information is there, it will be copied and it will be communicated. So these nodes would work as one of these nodes would work as an entry and exit nodes within the dark web. Exit nodes. So the biggest question that we see today is whether more than the wanted awareness, unwanted awareness spreads a lot. So the Tor network, the moment this protocol has been rolled out, instead of using it for the net neutrality purpose, or maybe instead of using this for a specific maintaining the anonymity or maintaining the freedom of speech, the people started using this for an abusive way in terms of hosting notorious services, hosting the malified services, a criminal activity. It has turned out to be a hub for the criminal activities. There are various versions of Tor were there. So Tor 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So different versions have been evolved. So every day, every 10 minutes, there is a change in the circuit takes place. So across this DHT Kadimalian network, so various nodes will be changed. What exactly happens the moment you connect to the Tor? Let's say this is where you connect to a dark web using the Tor. It connects from the client. Let's say we take a VPN connectivity first as a hop 1, and from using the VPN connectivity, we open a Tor browser here. Then Tor will again run one more Tor node based VPN. So there are 2-layer anonymity we are maintaining here. From here, it connects to one of the onion routers. And from this router, basically, this is what we call it as an entry node. And from this entry node, it will typically create a circuit. So then from here to the hidden services, which is one more node within the dark one. So it connects to the. So whenever you initiate a Tor browser, so this proxy starts, the moment this proxy starts, it invokes a TLS protocol. This TLS protocol related information will be sent to the entry onion router. This is an entry node. The entry node will reply back with acknowledgement, and subsequently it will be generating a key. And this key would be communicated back to the middle router, so which is beyond this entry point. Middle router will acknowledge this. Back to back, this will be established. and it connects back to the TLS to the destination. So every time, like how we have a TCP three-way handshake in a similar way. So every time you switch over the circuit or change the circuit, it's the same process. It follows the same call flow. It follows. So it basically first starts with the initial call would go to the introduction point, which is an entry point, and from here it goes to the hidden services server. From the hidden services server is enlisted with the directory server, and this is connected to the directory server back after verification of the hidden services server whether this is an appropriate email or appropriate URL or not. So how we exactly check whether this is an appropriate email or this is a URL, whether this is the same URL, is it the same website that we are looking for? No. So there is a PGP key usually generated, and this PGP key will be updated back onto the PGP server of the directory services, based on which basically you identify. And this point would confirm and create a backup circuit without disturbing the connection. So if you wanted to hop over, this point would take that hop over activity or the job responsibility and move on. This is how in a real time, like starting from an entry node. So different circuits could be used to connect to a particular destination. So every time you take an iteration or make a change, the TLS handshake would be reinitiated. That's the reason why whenever you run a Tor browser, so you see a completely TLS encrypted application data which has been flowing, but still there is a way, in terms of identifying what might actually go wrong and what all the possible data points that can be looked into to exploit this. Major dark web illegal activities covers purchase of the illegal items, illegal substances, could be the drugs, right? Could be arms domination, or could be something which is not permitted as per the law. Financial frauds, we see that majorly the cryptocurrency scams, credit card, selling the credit card data, giving and cash out options to people, as well as drugs and child pornography, human organ dealing, human organ trafficking, assassination contracts, and terrorist activities. So you just name a heinous crime, you'll find a point which has been offering it on the dark web. So it has become a real challenge for the law enforcement agencies to find this because of due to this anonymity. When you see that, all learned people in the session, you can easily understand one point is that the moment on your, let's say, on your system, right, you run a VMware, and you from that VMware usual way of approach that the people would take is from this VM again they'll connect back to a VPN service, a paid VPN service. From this VPN service, it connects to Tor network, because the moment you open a Tor browser here, right, so it initiates a Tor VPN here. So it's a first level, the second level VPN. And from here, again, this VPN would take an entry node onion router. From there, it moves on to the middle relay routers. And multiple middle relay routers will be involved before it reaches to the destination. And then could be a rendezvous node which would be there, and which would finally moves you to the destination. So a multi-level. So you see that this is a multi-level anonymity has been maintained here. So there are multiple steps. If you actually go with that typical conventional tracking and tracing methodology using the same network network tracking methods or network monitoring methods, will land up in the rabbit hole. So this becomes in terms of identifying this would become a tough thing. So what all the different approaches that we have is what we'll be talking a bit later. These are a few of the sites where we see kind of different activities, different of illegal activities, right from the drugs to the counterfeited money to the arms ammunition. So different types of financial frauds like cryptocurrency frauds or credit card frauds do takes place here. terrorist activities, and also trafficking, human trafficking. The unanswered questions that remained while going with the star, and when the star has evolved and people started actually reading out, one of the quote, Snowden's quote is, um, anonymity is a right of everyone. Yeah. He agreed to that. This freedom of the anonymity, keywords of the internet, which where exactly this freedom has gone, is in terms of performing the illegal activities, the small chance of being convicted. That too, you have to have some kind of a reverse engineering process, a reverse way of connecting the dots to identify who might be the connected people that are involved with that particular portal. So this is a conventional policing method. Again, it involves actually to check this, but that the this is a ratio, or in terms of now kind of busting this criminals would become really challenge for the law enforcement agencies to identify this. The type of actions we are encouraging by providing the anonymization services should be handled very carefully. This makes it necessary to reflect on the impact of the top freedom. The major challenges that we see is anonymity and connectivity. And the frequent changes. So, as an investigator, when you look at it, what are all the challenges that we see? So, investigation challenges that we see is anonymity. So, as I said, we already identified it's a 5 to 6 levels of anonymity we have to pass through. So, typical network monitoring methods will not work for this. More importantly, the kind of TLS strength that they use, the kind of PGP based identification of the sites that we maintain. So it will be very hard unless you, indulge or take a workaround solution for it. And most importantly, the URLs are nothing but the hashes which are being generated by the system. For example, a node, there is a node which is hosting. So node Vinod is hosting today, node Ashok is hosting tomorrow, node X is hosting, node Y is hosting, node Z is hosting. So today you'll see that this URL would be with 123 for as the URL today, and the very next day it will be moved on to A, and from where it will be changing onto the 6892.onion. So it will keep on changing. So tracking or basing on, for example, in a real-time scenario, what happens in the over the internet, you have a DNS server. DNS server need to maintain the pointer records, based on which basically you'll be able to identify a particular website. But here, it's all got to do with the hashes, what they generate. So when it is hosted on Windows machine, a Windows related hash will be generated that will be used as an onion URL link. And when it is hosted on Ashok or X or Y, those relevant hashes are being, and they keep hopping over from one node to the other node. And there are the sites which hop over even for even every once in 4 hours, once in 5 hours. So it becomes really hard to identify this kind of marketplace URLs. Then the kind of cryptographic strengths that they use, we need to have to do a cryptographic brute forcing, or to launch a kind of unbirthday paradox attack, or maybe using a known ciphertext attack, or known plain text attack. Any of this, you need to have some kind of computing technology which is not available on the earth today to brute force it. Such a kind of a 4048 or bits length keys are being generated, which takes a much more longer time, and there's no idea till today like how this could be brute forces and what kind of a computing technology do we need to brute force it. And more importantly, the blockchain, the cutting edge blockchain support, based support for the crypto support currencies have been one of the advantage to these marketplaces. So if it is a bank-based or a bank transaction, maybe credit card transaction, maybe a PayPal transaction, maybe some kind of a payment engine related transaction, there are AML, anti-money laundering methods that could be used and invoked, using which this can be tracked. And there are hundreds and thousands of cases across the world using this AML techniques. People have nabbed those guys, the bad guys, and they were get hold of it. But now today, biggest challenge is how to get onto this main areas or main challenges that we have. A recent now this is a recent Dutch police who has nabbed this particular vendors. So they are popular vendors across the markets called as an empire market, as well as they're pretty much known on the empire and silk markets. So what kind of a procedure did they use? They started with the fingerprinting. They started with the pattern analysis method. So because a typical, if you wanted to brute force and get into their system, it becomes really hard because you don't know from which node to which node you are hopping on. So it makes too much complexity to identify them. So they have taken a different type of an approach where they started a mission called as a disruptor mission, where there are a lot of free community, open source community people are also members, and OSINT people, OSINT experts are also members of this legal battle that has been launched by various law enforcement authorities across the world. What are all the different attacks that we have seen on the TAR? That means the attacks are nothing but what are all the possibilities as an investigator you can evaluate on the TAR. One is like de-anonymizing techniques, and then the other one is sort of techniques that we could use as an active and passive techniques, passively observing the network traffic and manipulating this network traffic, actively manipulating this network traffic. So manipulation is nothing but creating a kind of an honeypot mechanisms using which basically passively you sniff what they are looking after and try to create, either capture those hashes and try to generate the similar kind of a hash and manipulate them in active. Then you have a single end and end-to-end attacks, which is where the attacker or the investigator, attacker is an investigator in this case, can impose a network anonymity by monitoring and controlling the Tor circuits. So that's one more way through which it could be done. So majorly the proven methods that are there in this area is correlation attacks, where end-to-end passive attacks, congestion attack, where end-to-end active attack is one more model, timing attacks. Then you have a fingerprinting attacks, and denial of service attacks. To take down a particular marketplace, this kind of attacks are being used. Fingerprinting attacks are to identify, like whoever, you have seen the criminals here, they are being tracked and traced based on the fingerprints. So it sounds to be cinematic, but that's exactly how the process is being used to get after these criminals. And then the supportive attacks are one more type of an attacks, which are ancillary attacks like a cyber attack, running in botnets, which could create a similar kind of hidden services and then lure the criminals to enroll onto that nodes, revealing the hidden services. These are the different. There's a mind map, attack mind map of 13 years journey of this dark web. Last, typically you can say that 14 years journey of the dark web. This is what exactly the type of investigation methods that are being used, like clock skew attack method, first node attack method, like which is what we call as an entry node. So when you capture a Wireshark traffic, you'll be able to reach properly. If you identify the entire log, you'll be able to reach up to entry node. So this entry node, identifying this entry node from there, trying to catch hold of the criminal is one proven technique. And lawyer-based attack, there are various different attacks, out of which fingerprint attack, replay attack, cell counter-based attack, which is like again a mobile-based and dark web activity, raptor attack. These are all put together is what we call it as de-anonymization techniques. And then correlation techniques is like, as I said, correlating the traffic and identifying the patterns. Right? Congestion attack is an attack which has been like a DOS is one of the, or DOS or DDoS is one of the examples where your intention is to interrupt the dark website and bring your own website over there. Similar kind of a honey trap methodology. A supportive attack that you see is cyber attacks and influencing target selection, Tor authentication protocols, attacking on it, which is actually could be possibly helpful, but In practical, the success rate would be very less. But de-anonymization attack and correlation attacks are the primary methods an investigator can use in terms of getting on. What are all the investigator approaches that we need to take? One is that website footprinting. So you will find a pattern of the website. Whenever you go for a website, you will find a specific pattern of the postings. You can also do a node circuit fingerprinting. For this, you need to run a suite of Kibana based dashboard where you can create a correlation steps where you need to import the latest node list, and then you can specify and then you can identify to a particular geography, from a particular geography, what all the entry nodes are there. On those nodes, what all the different types of communication requests that are being sent. So those kind of fingerprinting techniques, circuit-based fingerprinting techniques are being used, and multiple times which nodes have received it is what a circuit fingerprinting could identify. And throughput fingerprinting is another method. And then you have a first node attack, as I said earlier. So this web fingerprinting is like basically hits on the HTTP features, background traffic exploited, HTTP pipeline, HTTP ranging can be used for the packet sizes and coming and outgoing. So basically identifying a particular node and scanning each one of these nodes to read through what all the services that are running, what all the ports that are open. So that's about the approaches that we talk about. So just to show you an outline of what all the methods that could be used. I hope still you could see my network, my screen now.
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
So for the newbies, basically this is how the hash has been generated for each one of these nodes, each one of the systems, basically. So what I do is I usually connect from a node to that. From that VM, we connect back to one of the preferential service from a different location. Different depends upon what kind of an server that you're looking forward, and speed and connectivity, because the service is always important in terms of when you want to check what all the possibilities of getting caught. So you need to use anonymizer and use a different kind of spoofed IP address, which have been provided on a commercial service like NordVPN or ExpressVPN, and connecting that. So if you see here, typically this is the entry node. This is my browser. From here, it has entered into this particular God node, which is what we call it as an entry node. From there, it has hopped over onto the another country, which is what we call it as a middle relay. There's an IPv6 and IPv4 related information. Then from here, reach to Germany. So if I feel that network is slow, what I could do is I can switch to an U circuit to get the better network. Give me a minute. Let me just check around. So the advantage with this Tor is you can use the same connectivity to for the I2P as well as for the Tor network, both of this. So AMIA is one of the well-known search engines that you have. As you know, my circuit got changed, and you see this is a fluid nodes. So each one of these nodes, the black ones, what you see here, is nothing but a service operator. So a different type of ones, service operator you find here, the dark ones, right? This is connected to this hidden services server. So with this hidden services server, what all the services that are connected, you can find all of these services over here. See, it is giving you at the end, you can also find like what are all the different types of services or marketplace related activity that it is doing. So you see here, there's one more way of finding the patterns for each one of the nodes. When you are tracing a specific node, so you can actually identify this particular IP address, guard node, and from this guard node, what are all the usages that have been taken place. Just you need to add that IP address back onto your search, and then you could find the overall number of access search queries that has been gone through this particular node. This is a hidden services directory node. So multiple nodes are there like this. You see here. Let me just show you the various nodes that are there. Yeah, you see here? Different nodes are there. So these are all hidden services nodes, directory nodes from which various points are connected, and this will work as a relay node. You see here, this particular node is connected with two different directory services. It's a relay node. It's the rendezvous points which I've given you. So now, once you identify this hash, what you could focus on as an investigator is go after like which particular node. So get into the node details and try to identify which particular node has too many queries for towards this. So this is possible once you crawl the data and load this onto the tool like Kibana and show it on the dashboard, like what are the possible queries, search queries that have been routed with this syntax of NQL. There's one way of launching an investigation or identifying someone. Then you see and there's one more site which would actually give you details related to the latest marketplaces that are up and running as DNS stats. There are various other scripts which are there could be used to find out which are all the authorized PGP keys that are there which has been loaded onto this dark web websites. You can crawl those PGP keys and run a counterfeit for it. Alpha B market is up. So various markets which are up and running today, as of today, would be shown as a part of the DNS stats. So this is the latest link of a market called as an Alpha B. So basically, in this way, you can at least find out the hashes, and once you have the hashes, then you need to crawl those multiple hashes related to the hidden services nodes. And correlate from this particular nodes whatever you have taken. This can be correlated. So you can correlate that with the latest available active sites that are there. So that's the brief what I could say for today in short. So I think we already overshooted the time. It was a pleasure taking up this particular session, and thanks for giving this opportunity for Kriyavan team and as well as to Mr. Ashok. So over to you, Ashok. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot
a
for
lot
the
for the
demo.
demo.